Why do people dream? Why do we feel fear or joy for reasons we can't explain? Why do ancient myths and fairy tales repeat the same types of characters again and again? When Jung was just 12 years old, he had a dream that would shape his life. In the dream, he saw a giant underground structure with a strange, glowing throne. On the throne sat something terrifying and powerful. Jung didn't understand it, but he knew it was important. He believed this was his first encounter with something bigger than himself, what he would later call the unconscious. That dream never left him. It became the beginning of a lifelong quest. Part 2. Becoming a doctor of the mind. Jung went on to study medicine at the University of Basel and focused on psychiatry. At the time, mental illness was barely understood. People with serious conditions like schizophrenia were often locked away with little hope. But Jung wanted to help. He worked at the Bergallsli Psychiatric Hospital in Zurich, one of the best in Europe. There, he met Dr. Eugen Bleuler and helped develop new ways to understand mental illness. Jung noticed that when patients were asked to respond to words, their answers often revealed deep emotional reactions. He created the word association test to measure how long it took for someone to respond. Delays often meant hidden feelings. This work caught the attention of the most famous psychologist of the time, Sigmund Freud. Part 3. The Freud Connection. In 1907, Jung traveled to meet Freud in Vienna. They hit it off immediately. They talked for 13 hours straight. They became friends, colleagues, and for a time, Freud considered Jung his heir. Freud believed that our thoughts and behaviors were driven mostly by repressed sexual desires. Jung didn't agree. He believed sex was important, but it wasn't everything. He thought the human mind was much more complex. Freud saw Jung as the future of psychoanalysis. Jung saw Freud as a father figure. Their bond was intense, but also fragile. Jung wanted to go further than Freud was willing to go. Freud wanted to keep the field scientific and grounded in biology. Jung wanted to explore religion, myth, dreams, and the mystical side of the mind. Their friendship lasted about 6 years. But as Jung's ideas grew more mystical and spiritual, Freud became frustrated. In 1912, Jung published a book that openly challenged Freud's ideas. Freud broke off all contact. Jung was devastated. He went into a personal crisis that lasted years. But instead of running from the pain, Jung did something incredible. He turned inward. Part 4. Facing the Darkness. For the next few years, Jung explored his own unconscious mind. He wrote down his dreams, his visions, and his strange thoughts. He even had imaginary conversations with characters like Philemon, a wise old man who seemed to speak from a deeper place inside him. He documented all of this in a large, red leather-bound journal he simply called the Red Book. It was private, strange, and full of colorful drawings and poetic writing. For decades, he kept it hidden. It wasn't published until 2009. What he found in those years became the foundation of his life's work. He discovered patterns in human thinking. He found symbols that appeared not just in his dreams, but in the myths and stories of cultures around the world. The Red Book was more than a diary. It was Jung's record of a psychological and spiritual journey, one that almost broke him. He faced voices in his head, archetypal figures, terrifying visions, and deep questions about life, death, and the soul. And he came out of it with a new theory of the mind. Part 5. Jung's Big Ideas Made Simple. Jung came out of his personal crisis with a new framework for understanding the human mind. Let's take a look at the main ideas broken down simply. 1. The unconscious has 2 parts. Personal unconscious, your unique emotional history. This is where forgotten memories and repressed feelings live. Collective unconscious, a kind of psychological inheritance. It holds ancient patterns and symbols that all humans share. 2. Archetypes. Archetypes are like characters or themes that show up in everyone's stories and dreams. They're built into us. Examples include the hero goes on a journey, faces challenges, and returns changed. The shadow, the dark side of yourself you try to ignore. The wise old man, a source of wisdom and guidance. The great mother, nurturing, protective, sometimes dangerous. Jung found these patterns in ancient myths, modern movies, dreams, and even religious texts. He believed they were clues to understanding ourselves. 3. Individuation. This is the process of becoming your true self. It means accepting not just the parts of you that are easy to like, but also the parts that are uncomfortable, hidden, or painful. Jung believed this process was essential for mental health. 4. Synchronicity. Have you ever thought of someone and then they called you? Or stumbled on a book that answered a question you were secretly struggling with? Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to be connected by something more than chance. He believed that sometimes the universe speaks to us in patterns. 5. Introversion and extroversion. Jung noticed that people tend to get their energy from either the outside world, extroverts, or their inner world, introverts. This idea became the foundation of the Myers-Briggs personality test used today. He also identified 4 cognitive functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Each person relies more heavily on certain functions, which shape how they see and interact with the world. Part 6. The Mystic Scientist. Jung was unique because he wasn't afraid of the mystical. He didn't avoid strange topics. He went straight into them. He studied astrology, alchemy, tarot cards, and the I Ching. Not because he believed in them literally, but because they reflected something deeply human. He said these systems were full of archetypes and symbols. They offer a language to speak with the unconscious. Even ancient practices, like alchemy, weren't just about transforming metals, Jung argued. They were symbolic of personal transformation, of turning the base parts of ourselves into something higher. He was criticized for this. Many scientists called him unscientific. But Jung believed that truth isn't only found in numbers. Some truths are hidden in images, dreams, and stories. During World War II, Jung was even asked by the OSS, a precursor to the CIA, to analyze Adolf Hitler psychologically. He said Hitler wasn't just a man, he was an archetype in action, a person who had become possessed by the shadow. Jung warned that when we deny the darkness in ourselves, we project it onto others. Entire nations can do this, and when they do, they become dangerous. Part 7. Legacy and Relevance. Jung died in 1961 at the age of 85, but his ideas didn't die with him. In fact, they only grew more influential over time. Today, Jungian concepts shape therapy, literature, cinema, religion, art, and even business. Wherever people are asking, "Who am I really?" Jung's ideas are close by. His work has influenced filmmakers like George Lucas, who based Star Wars on Jungian archetypes. Writers like Hermann Hesse and Joseph Campbell took his theories seriously. Therapists all over the world use his methods to help patients understand their inner worlds. Even beyond psychology, Jung's ideas offer tools for personal growth. They help us face the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. They encourage us to take dreams seriously, to see life as a symbolic journey, and to grow into who we truly are. Conclusion: into the depths. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." He didn't want to be a guru. He didn't give simple answers. He gave us a map, a psychological map of the soul, and encouraged us to walk the path ourselves. In a time when the world feels increasingly fragmented and uncertain, Jung's work reminds us that understanding begins within. That if we dare to look inside, into our fears, our dreams, our darkness, we might just discover the strength and wisdom we've been searching for. So next time you wake from a strange dream or notice a weird coincidence, pause. Ask yourself what it might mean. That's what Jung would do. Thank you